So my question to you is, why John the Baptist?
That's a question with a friend. How much time do we have? That was kind of longish answer.
Okay.
I was raised Catholic, so I first became familiar with John, as a boy going to church and going to Catholic school. I don't think it really took back then because I didn't think much about him until I was an adult. But my wife and I married when we were in our 30s and had a lot of trouble starting a family, and that sort of returned us to the pews of our youth. Sort of there back at church, I started tuning in again to John's story, and in particular to that. There's an episode early on where John's mother Elizabeth is pregnant with him, and Mary comes to visit while she's pregnant as well, and Elizabeth leaps to her feet and says, when we heard the sound of your voice, the child in my womb leapt for joy, danced for joy. And I kind of thought, that's lovely. I mean, that was the first cue to me that there was a real story here. And I also have a friend who's a composer, and he and I had been wanting to collaborate for years and years and years. And on the basis of that incident, I thought, what if you just took all of the John material out of the Gospels and set it out? Would there be enough material for, not to make for a drama or a play, but just for something that people could sing, that my friend could compose to, and I'd be happy to just sand the edges for him. So that's what I did. It's sort of limb all of the John the Baptist material from the Gospels for the purpose of just providing an oratorio. But that's where it started, because as I did that, I looked at it and got drawn in, and my friend had questions, and I sort of became the scholar between the two of us. And in the course of answering his questions and mine, I realized that I was kind of hooked, and that this would be more than an oratorio. It should probably be a book.
And in crafting the novel, one of the things that is impressing me as I'm reading through it is that it's a language that echoes the biblical, yet is not itself like directly biblical. I mean, it retains enough modernity to be accessible to.
Right. Well, yeah. Finding a voice was one of the challenges, and as I mentioned in an author's note in the book, there's sort of three main sources for it. And one of the sources is a historian, Josephus. Another of the sources is the Gospels. The third source is the sort of scriptures of this Gnostic cult called the Mandeans. And so I think finding the voices was just a matter of living with those sources for a long time, and definitely wanting to, as you say, echo. The Mandean stories have a real music to them because I think they were handed down orally. So it wasn't necessarily by design, but out of respect to the sources and the amount of time it took me to master all this material that you soak in that sound. So the book kind of has two voices. It's got when you're following the Herods and the history and sort of the politics, there's a slightly more novelistic approach to it. But you're right, when you touch upon John's story, there's a slightly more sacred scriptural tone to it. It's a tribute to the sources I was using.